Good morning, everyone. Yes, as you all know, Councillor Wilcox is now a Cabinet member, and I am just standing in this morning to take the meeting for you. Thank you. Do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. We do have apologies from Councillors Thompson, Perry and Francis, and also Cabinet members Ian Parry and Philip White.
Thank you. Declarations of interest from anyone here? No declarations. So we got the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of December 2023. Has anyone got any queries or questions they want to raise concerning the minutes? No, I think we could move on. So we go to the Local Joint Enterprise Partnership, and I'm going to ask Alan White, the leader of the council, please, to introduce the agenda item.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman, and good morning, everybody. You're being asked this morning to consider and comment on the approach to form a Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee with Stoke-on-Trent City Council. Consider and comment on the draft terms of reference which you've got in your pack. As far as the reserves are concerned, those will be formally transferred to the County Council as the accountable body, and it's recommended that those funds are ring-fenced for the Growth Hub, Careers Hub, Local Visitor Economy Partnership and key economic programmes for the area. Decisions referred to in recommendation C will be considered by the Prosperous Committee and through a six-monthly economic strategy delivery update. The establishment of a joint committee is something we've been working towards as a result of government direction. The recommended terms of reference for the establishment and operation are appended, and they are drafted in sort of the legal form that you'll be familiar with when you've looked at various constitutions of various councils. For the last decade, the LEP has acted as an important organisational means of bringing together businesses and local leaders to drive economic growth across the area. It's also been responsible for the management and delivery of several major funding streams from government, but we received government's guidance in early 2022 that their LEP's responsibilities would be transferred to upper-tier local authorities. Subsequently, the Chancellor stated that he was minded to end national funding for LEPs from the 1st of April 2024. This was confirmed, had been confirmed sometime previously. The LEP had already agreed in principle to close the company, and in the absence of governance for making decisions related to the LEP responsibilities, it's to be integrated with the local authorities, and that had been considered. Based upon the methodology we've already used from working with Stoke-on-Trent City Council across shared services of archives and coroners, the methodology we've set out here is what is going to be used. Those draft terms of reference require Cabinet need to agree those, but we want to run it past scrutiny first. And it's the intention for 2 members of each council to be appointed to the joint committee, with 1 member of each council needing to be present for any decision to be quorate. Madam Chairman, that's in broad terms what we're setting out to achieve. The actual terms of reference themselves are set out from page 11 onwards, and I would request the committee's comments, if there are any, as to the appropriateness of those terms of reference moving forward. Thank you.
Anything to the report, to what the leaders said?
Not from my point of view, thank you, Chair. Probably worth just introducing myself so that you're aware of who I am. So I'm Matt Shufflebotham. I'm Senior Economic Development Officer and work in our Business and Enterprise team. And so I'm supporting quite a lot of the work in terms of the closure of the LEP and the transfer of those responsibilities over to the upper tier, to us. So yeah, just any technical questions I need to answer really, but nothing to add, no.
Comments or questions from the floor? No questions? Oh, Councillor Pert, sorry, I didn't see.
Good morning, Chair. And I was going to let everyone else start off because normally it's me who ends up leading from the front. I think this, in principle, is a good thing because it removes one of the layers of decision-making locally. And I think the other benefit is that it ensures a joined-up strategy. So I think, in principle, this is something that's to be welcomed. However, the bit which concerns me probably is the legacy projects, because it's fine reporting the returns to central government for the legacy programmes, but actually there's some really key important outcomes that should help Staffordshire to maintain its growth. I would hope that we were doing more than just reporting the returns for government, and actually what we were going to do was to ensure that actually the budgeted business cases were achieved in all cases. And if that meant we had to go and support those organisations to do it, because it is to our benefit and it's to our Staffordshire's residents' benefit as well by doing so. So it felt a bit passive in the report, you know, sometimes when it's not our money, you know, there is less emphasis in trying to make sure that we maximise the return. I know that wouldn't be the case here, but the wording in the report felt very passive. And I would hope that we took a bit more of an active role, and I would be pleased to have a reassurance on that, please.
That's a very good question. The report sets out the mechanism for the administration of those funds and how we work together in the future, post-LEP. But the most important point that Councillor Pert has raised is that the projects that have been brought forward over the past 14 years have seen Staffordshire, which was part of the worst performing regions in England, go from a laggard to somewhere where we should all rightly be proud with the projects that have been put in place. To allow those projects to passively chug along, for want of a better phrase, post-LEP, would be the wrong thing to do. What we should be doing is ensuring that both the joint endeavour of Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent is one that continues to enhance the growth capabilities of this area. And that then falls into a different remit which Prosperous will be looking at in due course, which is the economic development strategy, the local visitor economy plan, and other projects that we have in the pipeline. This setup that we're proposing, or this new committee that we're proposing, the Joint Delivery Committee Agreement, will be the body that oversees that and oversees the diligent monitoring and reporting of those projects. The drive for continuing to make these make Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent a growing place will come from economic development within Staffordshire County Council and the local and Stoke-on-Trent City Council. Stoke-on-Trent City Council can clearly speak for themselves at this point, and I shouldn't comment on their views of economic growth. It's not my place to do so. What else was there I was going to say? Yeah, just wanted to mention projects that are in the pipeline now, which are clearly very interesting to the north of Staffordshire and indeed will have consequences for the rest of Staffordshire, like the A50, A500 corridor project. There's a promotion of that in Westminster on Wednesday lunchtime, making sure that members of government and members of Parliament understand our ambitions around growth there. We've got the West Midlands interchange and the opportunities there. And we've also got what happens to post-HS2 and making sure that conversations that are taking place have us in the room, so we any thoughts or proposals for the future of HS2 aren't detrimental. It was clear that the Secretary of State, in his direction to bring this management of these funds into upper tier local authorities, was that he wanted to make sure that there was democratic oversight of the funding. I think that's the right thing. I always think it's the right thing to have democratic oversight of funding like that, so that it makes sure it chimes with the priorities of those people who are elected to represent people, rather than those people who might be sitting around the LEP table motivated by the interests of their business and not necessarily the wider interests of the people of Staffordshire. There was an assumption that the interests of business would always align with the interests of the people within the area that were being served. That's not always the case. There are broader considerations, and we, as the elected and accountable body, are in the right place to make those judgments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Got anything they'd like to say? Yes, Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just been looking through the document and trying to see if there's any reference to any risks that come forward with this package. Are we aware of any significant risks, major risks? Have they been scaled? What is your view of the risks associated with this activity?
If I phrase it in a way that perhaps is a little lightweight but might convey what we're trying to achieve here, this is a housekeeping exercise, which is that the functions and responsibilities of the LEP will move from where they are now to this joint committee. The projects that need to be monitored will come with it, and those risks will then be scored by this joint committee. I'll turn to Mr. Sheffield-Botham just to find out if he's identified any particular risks that might be front and centre when the projects move across, that the joint committee might have to grapple with. But as it stands, this report in isolation is a housekeeping exercise.
Yeah, no particular risks at this stage, I don't think. I think that, again, what we're looking to do here is it's additional activity for us. So this is over and above what the County Council has done previously. It's obviously it's functions that are coming over from the LEP. Yeah, any individual risks that are with regards to individual projects, they'll clearly be dealt with on an individual project basis. And so we would consider it like we would any other project, I think. So as it stands at the moment, absolutely not. I think that in terms of some of the things that are coming over, so just to touch on some of the issues that we perhaps have been dealing with. So the LEP has been in this situation of flux for quite some time. It's probably been over a year at least. Over that period, they've lost quite a lot of staff, a lot of capacity, a lot of capability. And so the risk at this point has essentially been ensuring that the programmes that are coming over are in a place that we can then really kick on with them come April. And so that's what we've been dealing with. And you know, over the last few months, there's been a huge amount of work that's been going into that. And I think that we've dealt with it, and we do feel like we're in a good place with these projects that are coming over now. And I think that's where we're at.
Ask what they want now, yeah. So on page 7, you'll see the recommendations. I presume you've all had a chance to read them. Am I okay to take your thoughts on the recommendations? If you'd like to vote for them, please. Is that a yes from everyone? Thank you. That's very good. Okay. So item number 5 is the quarterly integrated performance report, and it's the leader of the council again who's going to introduce this along with Lindsay Bissell. I think we're just going to collect her now. She perhaps wouldn't be expecting to be in quite so early. Over to you, Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got supporting me this morning Lindsay Bissell, who will be asking any detailed technical questions. As always, Madam Chairman, if there's questions of great detail that we can't answer here and now, we will take them away and get back to you. As we did at the last meeting, you had feedback on the 27th of November, so hopefully that got through to you. So I hope this new method of doing our reporting back to you is welcome. It certainly allows you to make sure that we are on our toes. This is the integrated performance report for quarter 3, 23-24. We're asking you to note the challenge, note and challenge performance and advise of any further information and or action required. We continue to support local businesses to start up and grow, and our brand, which is making great, with the We Are Staffordshire brand, is making great strides, particularly amongst the real estate community. And we'll be attending the UK's Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum in May in Leeds, where we have the opportunity to showcase all the great opportunities across the county of Staffordshire in each and every district and borough. Climate change continues to make steady progress, currently with a 12% reduction in the authority's carbon emissions since 2021 and 50% reduction since 1819. Since December 22, the Staffordshire Warmer Home Scheme has installed 513 improvements in 349 properties. And through our Winter Warmth Project and Household Support Fund, 2,748 eligible residents have received their first payment of £300 towards help with their energy bills, which is tremendous. An Ofsted inspection of the children's services, though, resulted in us getting a grading of requires improvement to be good. And we've developed a plan to improve our rating. Major projects underway include the Staffordshire History Centre and the 3 new primary schools, which remain on track to be completed and opened by the autumn of 2024. And those people who are resident in Stafford will see the work on the History Centre, and it's looking good. We continue to deliver on a balanced budget and invest to keep growing the county in a sustainable way. Rising costs, of course, across the organisation, along with the recruitment and retention pressures, do continue. Levels of demand and complexity also remain challenging, particularly in children's and family services and in special educational needs and disabilities, where transport costs are rising very significantly, and you'll see that clearly referenced in your report. The portfolio holder, Councillor Price, has got a plan in place and work is afoot to start to tackle that. The latest revenue forecast outturn shows a forecast overspend of £5.4 million, or 0.9% of the budget, compared to Q2 forecast overspend of £7.7 million, or 1.1%. So it has come down. However, when you have the chance to look through the report in detail, you will see that there are places where there's significant underspend, which is offsetting overspend in other areas. On page 26, you've got the Q3 summary in a tabular form, highlighting the important successes that we're having, but also identifying very clearly the challenges that we face. I can't, of course, go past this introduction without going to children in care, where there is clearly some pressure. I've already referred to the rising cost and complexity of children in care, and also the grading of requires improvement to be good that Ofsted gave us at their recent inspection. We've set ourselves stronger targets and more structured monitoring, and a clearer escalation process when it is felt progress on an issue is not fast enough. Closer cooperation with health and housing providers, more sampling of work, and better provision of broadband access for care leavers to support their first independent steps. We have additional capacity coming on stream with 30 social work practice leads who have been recruited, with 15 of those posts funded by the Cabinet investment, which was improved in December 2022. We've made progress reducing the number of children in care in Q3. We've currently got a rate of 80.1 per 10,000, which is higher than the national average of 70 per 10,000 in March 2022, but it is heading in the right direction. One of the biggest sources of pressure are the number of children and young people with educational, health and care plans, or EHCPs for short. There were 7,325 on the 31st of December 2023, compared to 6,985 a year earlier, and that is continuing to rise. There are delays in getting the assessments completed, and we are recruiting additional educational psychologists in order to address that shortfall. We do have successes, of course. Final figures for Q3 have confirmed that 10,030 families have achieved a successful and sustained outcome through the Building Resilient Families and Communities programme since the 1st of April 2023. Just moving forward then onto highways, which is again an area of considerable pressure to you, particularly as councillors and across the county as you're driving on our roads. Demand challenges remain. In December 2023, there were 2.5 times more high-risk defects identified than in December 2022. But we've now put additional resources in place, including additional recruited people to the inspection team. There are reactive repairs, but we're also delivering on our highways investment strategy with 18 capital structural maintenance schemes completed in the year to date, including the A53 Broad Street in Leek, the A511 at Ashby Road, Burton, during Q3. There are many more schemes in the pipeline, and I would ask people to be patient as those schemes come forward, because I get a lot of complaints from people saying, I can't believe you started doing work on our roads, even though it's well signposted. Those are improvements to make it easier to get around. During the time of those works, you just have to be patient. The government's Network North announcements include additional highways maintenance funding for local authorities, which for Staffordshire equated to £6.3 million for 23-24 and 24-25. Now, some people have run away with that a little bit. There is additional money coming through the Network North announcement, but it's back-ended rather than front-ended, so we don't have a big slug of money to be able to put into our roads in the short term. So some of the hyperbole that's around the Network North announcement has been a little overzealous, one might say. And entertainingly, who thought we were in the north? I thought we were in the Midlands, but apparently we're in the north now. So, Madam Chairman, that's the main points I thought I wanted to raise with the committee. There are, of course, plenty of details in the main part of the pack, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Leader. Have we got any questions for either Alan or for Lindsay? None at all? Nigel, must have one. You'd let me down else.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. I brought my legal assistant with me today, just in case there's any problems, but I feel a bit lonely on this side. I've got a few things, hopefully relatively small points which are easy to answer, and put some points to take away, because I don't think you'll have the information on everything. Just going through the report, do you want me to come back over time, or just deal with everything in one go? It's a big report, there's a few things, so I apologise in advance.
You choose how you want to do it.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Firstly, on the box summary, which is very interesting, the HUG funding, the home upgrade funding, which is for gas grid homes. This was most welcome in the Staffordshire Moorlands, being high and cold and not universally with gas. I was quite shocked that there are areas which are excluded by postcode, which are absolutely desperate to change over to some kind of alternative heating system than fuel oil, which they are committed to at the moment. And I'm thinking, and you know, it must affect other divisions in the Staffordshire Moorlands. Well, I'm specifically looking at Biddulph Moor and Biddulph Park, which are both in my division, but I'm sure the same applies in other parts of Staffordshire. I'm surprised there are those postcode exceptions, because if you're off gas grid, then surely you would benefit, and the climate would benefit from upgrading to alternative sources and funding. So when I was promoting that, I did come back with a little bit of egg on my face, not realising that that was going to be the limitation. So I think that if there is scope for looking at that and broadening it out, I'm sure we can get much higher than the 513 measures, because I certainly know semi-rural communities who are itching to bolt into some kind of grant assistance to change over. The other thing, with regards to children's services, we acknowledge the pressures which we're under, and certainly have had various discussions, including with the Chief Executive, and we happy to report that he seems to have a very competent plan and response towards this. But one of the things which concerns me, which is missing, and one thing which has been reduced during the years of austerity, is early years intervention. And I know that we've got a few serious antisocial issues which are related to a small number of known individuals, and I know that one of the solutions is to take them into care. Another solution is to try and work with with the parents so that you don't do that. I mean, the taking children to care is the position of last resort. So I'm just wondering if there are any initiatives and any potential support coming forward within the plans to try and resolve the numbers of children to care and improve the service, that we can actually have early intervention within parents where they're identified, and more resource putting into that, because that's got to be a medium long term more cost effective approach, and also a better outcome for the children themselves. Don't want to moving over to highways. We have noticed that this winter has been absolutely appalling from a point of view of the amount of rain, the amount of weather, and the drains in the gullies just haven't coped. The fields are saturated, some of our roads are running into rivers, and the amount of Category 3 reported potholes, which over the last number of weeks have gone on to Category 1s and emergency potholes, but yet haven't had that re-inspection to upgrade them, and we've been caught out by complaints of cars being damaged and things like that. And when you go to them, yes, they recognise as Category 3s, but they're no longer Category 3s. So yes, we welcome and would encourage at first order to get more inspection capacity out there, so we can actually not just look for new potholes, but make sure we reassess some of the existing potholes which we've got, which I can assure you are getting worse literally as we speak. And moving on from that, accepting that well, not wanting to accept, but knowing that the dividend from HS2, the pothole repair funds and road improvement funds, is very back-end loaded. I think last year's member initiative funding made a real impact in resolving some of the longer-term, more niggly Category 3 potholes. And it was certainly a significant improvement on some roads up until November, when things did go a little bit pear-shaped, to say the least. And I'm just wondering whether we're going to have that kind of initiative again, where we can actually request certain roads, certain junctions to actually be repaired over and above the normal sort of routine maintenance of things. Moving on to the final thing, you've got some buildings and land coming up for sale, page 35. Be interesting if you distribute a list to councillors, certainly within their districts and boroughs, because you know there's a lot of push to potentially having community interest buildings and things, because we can put community assets. So whether we can get involved in that, I don't know. Little bit concerned and noted that the annual business startups was dipping in 2022. I think the boon post-COVID recovery of people knowing and having good ideas is very positive, but that obviously tails off. We have entered a recession in a difficult time, and I'd like to see that trend sort of booked and not continue. And again, with regard to climate change, looking at the graphs, I think what the county council has achieved is extremely laudable, and I've put that on the record before with full council. But there is an element, if you were plotting the graph, that it's very much bottoming out, and I think in some respects the relatively straightforward jobs, I'm not saying anything is easy or low-hanging, but the relatively straightforward jobs are done. Now the time does get difficult, so I think we do have to double down on actions there and obviously look at what we can do, and I look forward to more meetings with the Climate Change Working Group to see what the next basis is on that. I'll leave it at there, thank you.
Can I hand it over to you, Leader, please, to respond to the
Thank you.
queries?
7, I think. First of all, the postcode exclusions. I wasn't aware there were postcode exclusions, so we'll look into that. The next is the early years intervention component you addressed. There are absolutely elements, plans in place that are being they're not just plans on paper. They're things that are happening that are referred to in this report. So building resilient families and communities has been in place for some time, and you will see the outcomes of that. It's working intensively with families who may have troubles, either dealing with difficult children, getting kids to school, and all the issues that you see with troubled families. Working with them to give them the skills they need in order to get them in a place where they can have good start in life. There's also the Children in Care Plan, which deals with similar issues to the one that you were referring to. So whilst it's not called early years intervention, there are plans being executed which deliver the same effect, but by a different name. The highways point you make is one that I alluded to in my introduction. You make the point for me, which is that the fields are saturated. There comes to a point where there is so much rain that the fields can't absorb the water, the rivers can't remove it. As I came down the Trent Valley this morning past, what's the name of the bridge? Ugh, where the boozer is. Yeah, you know where I mean. There's a garden centre there as well. Wolsey Bridge. On the right-hand side, coming into Stafford. There is, yes. There is a... the whole place is underwater. There's just been such a large amount of rain, and it's very difficult for us to deal with that volume of rain. There is a flood strategy that we're working with the Environment Agency on. That has allowed some alleviation of it, but it's simply not going to be able to deal with the amount of water that we are confronted with these past few winters. You talked about Category 3s becoming Category 1s and the damage that does to people's cars, but I did say to you in my introduction that we have got more inspectors coming online so that we'll be able to address more of those Cat 3s that are advancing to Cat 1s in a timely fashion. The dividend from HS2, I do like your terminology there, Councillor Yates. Is it a dividend or is it just money that's not being spent? I don't know. That money that's coming through, it's not a whole hill of beans when it comes to the amount of work that we have to address. And again, Councillor Clements and her committee go through these sort of things in detail. We've had divisional highways plans for some time, and I don't anticipate that there wouldn't be a divisional highway plan in place for future years. The land that's available for sale across the county forms part of our property strategy. It's clearly signposted through the property committee. It is available for you to examine should you wish. So feel free to, at any point, come forward and avail yourself of that opportunity. The business startup rates are a function, as you quite rightly identify, of economic activity. We found that economic activity has stagnated. In particular, listening to the news this morning, the nature of the increase in prices and slowdown appears to be coming from the service sector rather than the manufacturing sector at the moment. So whether or not there's something related to that, it's a bit early for me to have done any analysis on that with the team. But whether or not what we've found in terms of the business that starts up in Staffordshire are predominantly service businesses or not, I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why. But there is a monthly economic survey that comes out, or report that comes out, that you can have access to. And then your final point was around climate change and the progress. Yeah, it has been steady progress. And yes, you're quite right to say that some of these continuing climate change challenges will become more difficult as time moves on. But my feeling is that people welcome incremental progress towards an objective rather than trying to make massive strides. And council leaders I've spoke to around the country about this issue, who found themselves in a situation where well-meaning members have said, we want net zero by 2025, for example. That comes with a gigantic price tag. And I think that if we set ourselves a reasonable target for net zero over a reasonable time scale, we can achieve that in a way that is affordable. Because those ones that are trying to make the gigantic steps, first of all, people live their lives and make changes in their lives by evolution rather than revolution. And if you try and create a revolution around this, then people tend to kick back in a way which then stops you achieving the objective that you're trying to achieve. You've been on the climate change working group yourself. I've seen pictures of you in a forest somewhere, obviously with other members of the committee not doing untoward things, but so you know what's going on with the climate change working group as well as everybody else. So everybody else involved with it. So I look forward to hearing what you've got to offer as far as the climate change working group is concerned, Councillor Yates.
Chair, thank you. With regard to the report in particular, I think by way of an example, paragraph 16 and 17, which naturally relate to safeguarding of children and young people. This area of business, of course, costs an immense amount of money. It seems an ever-increasing amount of money. A couple of things really is that I know that I and my safeguarding committee, we recently received the report from the Independent Safeguarding Review, which to say that it wasn't particularly complimentary would be an understatement. As you'll probably see in our forward work stream, certain elements of that are being picked up because it does cause some real concern. I think some of that is relevant to things like co-production and also early interventions, because we rely on other partner agencies and perhaps we don't have the relationship that we would like to have with them. All of which, if they were in place and working properly, I think it would be reasonable to assume that we would be making some quite big savings and actually dealing with the number of young people who need safeguarding in our county much better. My question really is, and I'm just using these two paragraphs as an example, and I do apologise for sounding like a scratched record here, but we are recognising, I think, as we move forward, that we don't have the data and the statistics and the information that is enabling us to make accurate decisions and important decisions about large amounts of money, and not least of all, the safeguarding of young people. I think the data issue was one that was echoed in the recent Ofsted report, and I understand that the Chief Exec himself has some concerns around the lack of available data that we have. And again, I would use here the fact that we have a rate of children in care of just over 80 per 10,000 against a national benchmark that is 70, which is a significant difference. And we always seem to caveat that with a comparison to the regional stats. And I do think the regional stats are somewhat skewed, of course, because we're in a region with Wolverhampton, Walsall, and not least of all, Birmingham. And I don't think we're the same as those particular areas. And I think that does tend to mask the issue that we are something of an outlier when it comes to what we're doing. And I think that that is also reflected in EHCP plans, of course. I think the figures were, we do 28%, where the national average is 58%. Yet again, a massive difference there. It therefore points to large numbers of people, and I think the report talks about us increasing or employing more particular professionals to cope with this huge demand. After all of that, the question's very simple, really. I just wonder, do we have any indication as to when we will have some meaningful data and comparative stats that enables us to see this bigger picture more clearly, and not ones that, in my humble opinion, really aren't suitable for the task. Until we do, we will not really recognise the scale of the problem and actually understand that longitudinal threat and risk to those young people, and actually, more importantly, our ability to be able to deal with what is a very serious issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. I'll ask Mrs Bissell to deal with the data question in particular, but I just want to pick up some of the general points that you raise. You're quite right that the independent safeguarding review was not particularly complimentary, and that in part lies at the core of that lies at our data deficit. I know you have a background in data, and I know it's something you're expert on. It is something that the Ofsted report picked up in some detail, and so that gap of knowledge that we had is something that is being addressed through the plan that the Chief Executive is bringing forward. But again, I'll get Mrs Bissell just to talk to that in a moment. The co-production point that you make is vital. We cannot come up with meaningful plans for some of those children in our care if we're not able to work with some partners, particularly the NHS. It has been a challenge for many years to get the NHS to take as seriously as we do the challenges we have with children. People around this table who've been involved in this for a long time will know that children and adolescent mental health services in the county of Staffordshire have been a challenge for many years, and Councillor Pert's committee has spent some time looking at this in detail. We continue to press for improvements, but it is difficult when you're dealing with an NHS system which is almost constantly under stress, with ambulances waiting outside A&E and sickness absence and everything that's associated with it. But that said, we continue to work hard to improve that situation, and indeed we've made sure that those partners who are involved in the co-production process understand their role in our improvement towards achieving a good grading at Ofsted come the next inspection. Your point about regional averages being skewed by authorities around us and within the county of Staffordshire is correct. It is skewed. That is the reason why we cite the national benchmark rather than the regional benchmark as the one that we are striving to achieve. It would be ideal if we didn't have any children in care, wouldn't it? Surely that would be the goal. I've seen in my time as a county councillor the numbers increase from the mid-600s to the numbers that we've got today. But circumstances have changed, standards have changed, expectations have changed, and we've had some horrific cases involving the abuse and death of children, which have changed the dynamic for children's social workers. And we do need to be mindful of that and the responsibilities that are laid upon all of us as corporate parents for the care of children in the county. I'll turn now to Mrs. Bissell just to talk about the data. It is her area of particular expertise, and rather than hear me drone on, why not hear it straight from the person who knows what she's talking about?
Thanks, Leader. Two-part response to that. So the first one is around the strategic oversight of the current performance measures. So as you've mentioned, Councillor Spencer, the Chief Executive, is really keen on this being much more robust with different indicators for members, scrutiny and the senior leadership team to look at. So we're currently refreshing our delivery plan for the organisation as per the direction of the Chief Executive, with input as well from the Leader and Cabinet. One of the things we're really keen to do as part of that is to amend the integrated performance. So the report that you see today, we are planning on coming back to overview and scrutiny in April with a refined version of them key performance indicators. So please, lots of input and feedback when we do come, because that would be really helpful. I think that's the strategic sense. From an operational sense, as you also referenced, Councillor Spencer, the Chief Executive is working really hard with Children's Services to think about what does that look like on the ground. So what are the key performance measures that we need to see there, and that will be monitored via the refreshed Children's Improvement Board.
Thank you for that. It's really reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pert, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I may. I'm obviously privy through the medium-term financial strategy to lots of detail, and we've looked at a range of different areas in the last couple of years, particularly the detailed work this year. So I don't intend to re-rehearse what's been done in MTFS, because there's a perfectly adequate report that covers those areas. Equally, in the time I've been on this scrutiny committee, the last 3 or 4 years, the quality of the data and the picture it paints is significantly better, and I'm sure that the aim is that this pack is comprehensive and that it shines a light on those areas of good performance and those areas with issues or opportunities, and to help be able to see the trends. So I hope that the comments I'm going to make will be taken positively, as ever. So the first one is, I wonder, when trying to shine a light in terms of areas for improvement, whether on page 42, the EHCP plans, it's a very short period that we're looking to show performance across. And yet, I think we all know that for certainly as long as I've been on this committee, performance has been downward. And it would certainly be helpful, I think, on the chart on page 42, not just to show 12 months worth of data, but maybe last 2 or 3 years, because there is a clear trend. And the reason for suggesting that is actually, you know, we may actually find greater focus on trying to resolve that long-term key trend, because I've banged on for the last 3 years on that one. On the same basis, on page 47, I think that it really would be useful to see what the residual Cat 3s are. It's very nice to see, you know, the sort of the fixed rate on highways, as well as seeing the numbers identified. But actually, it's the two together that really give the overall picture. And it would be really helpful, I think, to have the two together, because as my colleague across the room, Councillor Yates, mentions, you know, it does happen that Cat 3s can, particularly with the weather we've had this year, really deteriorate very quickly into Cat 1s and 2s. Just in passing, I note the somewhat downward trend on page 40 of the percentage of care providers that are rated good or outstanding. And that does concern me. And I wonder if there is a plan that is behind. I'm sure there is a plan, sorry. I'm sure there is a plan behind that trend. And I wonder whether that could be shared with committee, because I'm sure we all share the same concerns. Some really good performance in that area, particularly in terms of brokerage. But equally, it's great to have a good brokerage service, but actually if the choice of good or outstanding care homes is less, then I'm sure we're concerned. And then the final point I just wanted to pick up, and this is a real question because I don't think we've ever talked about this before, but on page 74, and what better way of indicating how good the quality of the information is, because, you know, there's 54 pages of data and 54 pages of really accurate, useful metrics. So as I say, this is about refining and improving rather than raising criticism. But I wonder whether some data could be, or some detail could be given to us about the LOBO borrowings, because often lender obligations and borrower obligations are associated with higher lending rates. And it's interesting to understand the maturity of the debt. But I'd be equally interested to understand, and I know this is a very detailed question, but, you know, this is something that's over 50 years. So you know, I would be interested in understanding what the borrowing rates are. And if that needs to be sort of a separate response, then all well and good. Thank you, Chair.
Are you going to take those,
Alan? Thank you for your comments, particularly your preamble about quality of data and the improvement of the quality of data. That's a welcome comment. There was an article in the Sunday Times yesterday about Birmingham City Council. And one of the key themes that you can draw out from that article, it was a lengthy article, was that the failure of transparency was in the view of the reporters, was the cause of Birmingham City Council's demise financially. Councillors weren't made aware of pressures and risks within the finances, and therefore they set a budget, even though some members of the council knew full well a couple of days earlier that they couldn't set a budget because they didn't have the money to do so. What we try to achieve here in Staffordshire is to make sure that we are consistently transparent, and we're available to answer questions, and that nothing comes as a surprise to councillors. There are things that come up from time to time which we have to address, but we address those in a transparent way, which allows us all to make judgments as to whether or not that's the right way to proceed. Your first point about EHCPs and the trend line, we can do that, of course. we can show you the previous data from previous years and include it as part of the graph that you are presented with. It would be worth, if we were to do so, putting in perhaps a commentary which allows you to understand why EHCPs have taken off in the way that they have, because it's not something that is encouraged by the local authority. It is something that is encouraged by external forces, including academy trusts and schools, and also some parents who are made aware of opportunities available to them by getting their child to have an EHCP. So that there are mitigations in place. And I think actually it would be quite useful to see that in the way that you've suggested. Your residual Category 3 pothole point, I think I addressed with Councillor Yates. We are getting additional inspectors in place, and hopefully that will address those Category 3s that are advancing at rapid rate towards Category 1s and worse. The reduction in rates of those care homes that are good or outstanding is something that, whilst at the moment is only marginal, is something you're quite right that we should be working on. I don't know what the plans are at the moment to work with those care homes, but if I may suggest, Madam Chairman, that it is in the remit of Councillor Pert's committee to be looking at care home quality and how we help those care homes maintain the standards that we'd hope they would have. Wouldn't we all want to make sure that a care home or a nursing home in Staffordshire is of an adequate standard? Because you never know, it might be your relative or it might even be you that finds yourself in one of those care homes or nursing homes. So we do want to make sure that they are good quality. And then finally, Treasury Management reports. Every 6 months, Cabinet takes a report on Treasury Management. It is a detailed and long report. This was, as you will recall, because you've been around for a while, Councillor Pert, I'm not suggesting you're old or anything, but you'll recall the Icelandic banking scandal. Some local authorities found themselves in in a very difficult position. And so every 6 months we receive a report at Cabinet which ensures not the return on our money, but the return of our money and everything that's associated with that, particularly LOBO and PWLB maturity. It would be for others to talk to you in detail about those maturity rates and LOBO. It is something that I don't have a particular skill set for, but the actuaries that we employ and also some of our treasury management experts can talk a language that very few of us understand, but it can be translated into English should you require. Madam Chairman.
Roger, to come back, yes, certainly.
Thank you. Welcome those comments. And obviously, I'll do as you suggest and pull the latest Treasury Management report and have a read of that, because I think that does make sense. We will take forward to committee about care homes and have that discussion with committee. It's them who decide ultimately what's on the committee's agenda, but I think that does make sense as well. I wonder two things. First of all, whether the Cat 3s could be added to that, the outstanding Cat 3s could be added to that chart, the second chart on highways, please, given the importance that is taken during today's discussion. And second of all, given our reliance on making sure that some of the key teams are properly staffed, and I noticed that one of the comments on the first page talks about, page 26, talks about all the key senior people have been recruited. All additional senior key workers are now in post. I wonder, given our reliance on the importance of having a variety of people in post, whether actually one of the charts that is missing is just a cross-cutting picture of where we are missing or where there are significant gaps in teams. Because if we had that, then we would get a view as to when it was going to be resolved, and we'd be fully up to complement. Thank you, Chair.
Just on the latter point, that will be in the refreshed reporting, because some of the gaps that we have do create pressures within departments, because sometimes we have a gap that we can't recruit into other than through temporary staff. We've just renewed the temporary staffing framework to allow us to bring in temps and agency workers. So, for example, if people in children's services go off on maternity leave, we need to backfill that in a timely way. But sometimes we find ourselves in gaps with gaps in long-term sick, which presents a challenge in the delivery of our agenda. So you will get more detail on that in the near future. As far as the category 3s and the data is concerned, Councillor Clement's committee deals with that in some detail. If I could ask perhaps yourself and Councillor Clements to liaise, and surely Councillor Clements' committee will want to see more detail in any event, and how that data is presented will make its way through into this. So I think it's probably appropriate to leave it to Councillor Clements and the portfolio holder to work together on what data is accurately reflects the information that councillors and members of the public actually want in a broader sense.
Has anyone else got anything they'd like to bring to the table? So on page 21, there is just the one recommendation that committee members note and challenge performance and advise of any further information and or action required. Is everyone happy to accept that recommendation? Thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the Overdue and Scrutiny Work Programme. And I'd like to introduce Deborah Breeden, please, to take you through the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report has been circulated with the agenda and presents an update on the Scrutiny work programmes for this year. Scrutiny committees have been busy since the last update at this committee. There have been 19 meetings, which considered 43 reports covering a wide range of topics. Paragraph 9 of the report lists committee activity. At meetings, members from across the county raise awareness of issues, bring challenges and different perspectives and experiences to the debates and questioning. And the items in the report list those items discussed. Paragraph 10 of the report highlights the working group activities. Working groups throw a spotlight on an issue. They are established by committees when an item is identified for in-depth consideration. Members use a variety of methods when conducting a working group and have invited a range of witnesses to help them conduct their work. Just a quick summary of where we are with our working groups is that the MTFS working group and the Carbon Sequestration and Woodland Development working groups have both presented reports, final reports to Cabinet, and their reports will receive an executive response to this committee in April. The Adult Social Care Working Group, established by Health and Care Committee, will report back to that committee in March. That has met on several occasions and has prepared a final report. The Women's Health Strategy Working Group recently met and has agreed its focus on endometriosis, taking into account the Women's Health Strategy for UK and also Staffordshire focus. And that will report an update report to the Health and Care Committee in March. The Civil Parking Enforcement Working Group is also in the process of drafting its final report and will report back to Prosperous either in March or in June. Appendix to the reports are also the remainder of the combined work programme items for this municipal year. Committees have just one meeting left in the year's programme and are already in the process of preparing next year's work programmes, taking forward any items that are still a priority but need to be planned into the work programme for 24-25. And Appendix 2 is the actions and recommendations log. Actions and recommendations are tracked to monitor outputs from committees and where scrutiny is making a difference on the matters that impact the Council and the Staffordshire residents and businesses. This report demonstrates the value of scrutiny and the work that every one of our committee members has put into scrutiny for this year so far. And it's here today for your consideration. So if I can pass back to the Chair now to invite any comments or questions.
Thank you for that. I have here the Chairman of the committees, Councillor Pert, Health, Councillor Clements, Prosperous, and Councillor Spencer on safeguarding. Have any of you or all of you anything you'd like to add to the report that Deborah's given us, please? Councillor Clements.
You'll have to forgive me as well because I've lost my voice virtually. Just to say that I think we asked for the tracking actions and outputs to be put onto this report, and I think it helps us all see where we are and where we're going to, and some of the outcomes that we've achieved. So for me, that's a really helpful diagram, whatever you want to call it, so we can all track exactly where we are and know that we're not covering the ground twice with two separate committees. And I think that was a sensible outcome, because some of the reports we do cross over to different committees. So I was invited to Bob's committee as well, just to listen in, just in case there was anything to pick up for Prosperous. So I think it's great that we've got those tracking actions in place, so we can all see where we are.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer.
Chair, thank you. I would simply echo what Councillor Clements has just said about the log. I also think there's a couple of other issues. We've recently had some meetings amongst ourselves. Really about two issues. One is about where certain reports should go. I think because there was a feeling that some reports members couldn't quite understand why they were seeing them, and perhaps more importantly, those reports take up valuable time when we could be looking at other more relevant issues. And I welcome the fact that that has now been addressed and moving forward. The other thing, and again just in echo of what Councillor Clements just said, is part of, certainly from my committee, there was certainly a feeling sometimes that the members want to feel that they're making a difference. They want to feel that the points that they're making are being taken seriously, and have some form of audit trail to show that someone is taking them seriously. Bear in mind, we are a committee that makes recommendations or agrees to recommendations, and I think it is important that there is some sort of feedback around just what those recommendations or the seriousness that they've been taken with. So I would just say thank you to the team for all the work that's been put in to make this process more meaningful and also more informative for all of the members involved.
Councillor Pert.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly would echo the comments of the two previous learned councillors in terms of this report. I would also echo the comments of Deb Breeden in terms of this provides a comprehensive summary of activity over the last 12 months. We within committee use a risk-based analysis to be able to prioritise what we want to see in front of committee, and I think that's really important, because when you're looking at something as broad as health and care, we could spend a lot of time on every individual area, in which case we'd be meeting on a daily basis and not actually taking the strategic decisions that our residents across Staffordshire want. And so that introduction of a risk-based analysis, I think, is really important. I would like to thank the officers because there is a significant amount of work that goes on behind the scenes and getting to the showcase, which is the committee themselves. And without all that work and commitment, certainly we would be significantly less effective. But I also would like to put on record my thanks to the senior executives in health and care across the NHS and across social care for the seniority of people who come in front of committee, because they give up their time to allow us to ask those questions, which provides reassurance and scrutiny of the work that they are doing on a daily basis. And I think that's really important to ensure that we can make influence and we can raise the concerns that we have on some of the areas within health and care. Thank you.
I think you've, yes, certainly.
Sorry, Chair, I forgot to mention Jonathan Lindop is the Scrutiny Officer for Prosperous, and he's retiring from the authority after 36 years. He's very young to retire, but he is. And I just wanted to here and now place on record that we've worked really well, myself and my vice chairs and the members of the committee with Jonathan over that, not over 36 years obviously, but over the time that I've been chairman, and we wish him a very happy retirement and anything going forwards.
Sure we all agree with you and wish him the best too, because that's a long length of time, isn't it? Yes, it really is. So is there anyone else who wants to add anything? Only just add my congratulations to you for having such good reports and doing excellent work. So keep up the good work. There is a recommendation on page 75. I'd like to recommend that the committee receive the work programme in 2023-24 update, agree the combined work programme Appendix 1, and note the tracking recommendations and outputs Appendix 2. Is everyone happy to accept those? That's unanimous, so very good. Thank you. That brings us up to item number 7. And I'm going to introduce Mandy here to do the work programme, please.
Thank you, Chair. There are just 2 items that I'd like to raise or just to remind you of on the work programme. Your next meeting's on the 8th of March, and it's a meeting that's reserved for any call-ins, but it will be followed by an informal meeting of the committee to look at the corporate plan, delivery plan and the community strategy. If there aren't any call-ins, then the meeting will start at 10 o'clock, just as an informal meeting for members only. The second thing is that at your meeting on the 6th of November, you asked the chairman, the then chair, Councillor Wilcox, to have a meeting to discuss performance indicators for Intrust. Now, that meeting took place on the 24th of January, and a set of the notes and the results of that meeting is attached to your work programme for information.
Thank you, Mandy. Everything straightforward? Nigel, yes.
Yes, thank you. Just a technical question, really. Unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way I sort of put it, I'm actually going away, or I'll be on holiday on the 8th, with it being call-in. So the informal part, I'm just questioning how informal the informal part is. Is it going to be minuted so that I can have a catch-up when I get back? There's going to be some kind of record, isn't there? Yeah.
Well, have a lovely
and can
holiday.
you post my apologies in advance, please? Thank you.
Yes, have a lovely holiday, and Mandy, can you fill him in, please?
Yes, the meeting will be minuted. I intend to attach the notes to those work programme meetings onto the work programme at your next meeting, so you will be able to catch up.
Councillor Pert.
I too need to submit my apologies, please.
People who are away now. Will it be quorate?
It's an informal meeting.
It's an informal meeting. Fair enough.
I did originally have it in my diary as a reserve for calling, and that was cancelled. I took the opportunity thinking, oh, I've got a clear week. If the attendance is going to be knowingly poor, is there a chance of having the informal meeting bolted onto something where the attendance could be a little bit higher, or is it a pretty pertinent time-wise to have the informal meeting at relatively short order?
To someone who knows.
I think the issue has been getting the items considered before they go to Cabinet at the end of March, so that you've got some ability to or opportunity to feed into the documents before Cabinet. If it's held any later, it'll be won't be pre-decision.
I should know this, shouldn't I? But I assume there are some documents already here with us, or we'll be having some shortly. Documents for this informal meeting? Or is it that informal, there's no document?
The documents aren't ready at the moment. They should be ready about 48 hours before the meeting, so something will be able to be emailed out to you, so you've got some chance of reading it before the meeting.
No, the point I was going to make is if there are documents and people can't make it, if they wanted to give me any feedback, then I can bring that on the day, and I wouldn't try to represent everyone else, but at least I could echo whatever views people might want to express on the day.
Sounds very, very kind of you. So, that's it then, isn't it? We've finished exclusion of the public. The public be excluded from the meeting, but there are no items in private business. So thank you all for your attendance, and safe journey home.